Hello. Sorry, I have it set up really weird so that you can see, but you can't really see me. We're gonna get started today. I just realized I need my lights on so you can see what we're doing. So this shoebox, my son got some new Crocs, and they are a collaboration with Tricks, and the box was really cool. So I decided that I would turn it into a notebook or maybe a couple notebooks. I'm actually keeping this like very off the cuff. I knew I wanted to use this box for upcycling, but I haven't even really looked at it. Like I'm just discovering that this is on the bottom here. So I'm going to take a look at it. I'm going to show you my process for making different notebooks out of this and kind of what I do. I have done another set of notebooks out of a different shoebox, my running shoes. By the Brooks Running Company. They had a really cool shoebox, and I did that recently, but I didn't show any of the process, just the finished stuff. So I want to start by taking a look at all the different sides. I really love this marbled design. This is actually what the Crocs look like. The color pattern of the whole shoe is this marbled pattern. So I know I want to use at least make one book where the marbled pattern is on the outside cover. And I don't know if I want to do a silly rabbit tricks are for kids one or not. So I just kind of want to get a sense of what pieces I could use. I also did one. I made a couple of different books out of when I got roller skates. They came in a really cool box. So if you've been following me on my Instagram for a while, you may have seen projects like this before. This side here has all of the shoe information. So I'm going to see if I can get the sticker off. If I can't, then that helps me know that I won't be able to use this panel, at least not the whole panel. And that's fine because this is plenty of material to work with. Oh yeah, see that's starting to tear. All right, so we're gonna leave that on, and I'm gonna take this apart now. All right, so I use a blade, and we'll just cut through to get this open. There we go. And there are a couple parts here on the bottom that are attached, so I think I'm just gonna pull these to release them. Okay, so now I have it, and I can lay it out flat. All right. So the question is like, what is interesting? Is any of this stuff interesting enough to be on the outside cover? And I think the silly rabbit, you can't see it, the silly rabbit tricks are for kids, the one side panel that doesn't have the label. I think this one could be kind of cool. It has a cut in it too. There's another one. That could be interesting though. I might use this and fold it in the center and make this the outside. Let's start with that project. Let's see if we like this. I'm going to actually use scissors to cut this section off. Okay, so for now, all the rest is going to the side. Okay. And this has this part on it. All right, well, I'm going to trim this down to the right size and see how I feel about it having this little flap. Can you see that extra piece there? I don't want to rip it off because, as evidenced by the other places that I've separated it, it's going to tear. The glue is good enough that it won't just pop off easily. So we may just have to live with that. All right, so what I usually do is I will follow the seam or where the fold is as a general guide. And then once I have this straight edge, I can measure everything else off of it. Use a smaller mat for it. So I'm just going to get the top edge here lined up on some grid lines. This is almost at 5.5, and I know I'm going to use regular copier paper for the inside of these journals. And this is just over 5.5 inches. And if I use 5.5, if I use 8.5 by 11, I can cut it in half, and that will be a 5.5 height. So I'm going to cut my cover to 5.5. If it was a different measurement, I would totally just work with what I have. But knowing that I can make it to 5.5, and then I can take a regular size piece of paper and cut it once and get 2 pages out of it makes life a lot easier. All right, I'm going to cut this edge because it has this little bump here. And so what I'm going to do is flip this around and line up my stuff again. Okay. And then I want to see, so this has about about a 1/2 inch from the edge to the front part of the writing. So if I kind of follow that same pattern here, I'm going to take off about 3/8 of an inch on this side, just to kind of keep it even so that I don't have more blank space on either side. Oh, I should also take into consideration where this is and make sure that the scoop is going to sit, that we're going to end up folding it evenly on the scoop, because that would be weird otherwise, if it was like folded halfway. So, all right, before I make my cut, I'm going to think through this and measure it and see what we've got. This is like 4 3/8. And then 4 3/8. I think it's going to be really close. What I can do is measure here. Sometimes when I'm doing stuff like this, I will actually just put a little mark on my ruler if I need to, because this is kind of like in between 2 different areas. I just want to make sure. Okay, so it looks like I'm actually going to end up, if I want this part, the scoop, to be centered, I'm actually going to need to take off a little bit less than what I had originally said based on just the blank space here. So, and I'll start with this and I'll see how that looks too, to take off just that much. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I have my computer up so I can see what you're asking, and I can ask them while I am working on, I can answer them while I'm working on this. Okay. All right. So now I want to think about this. So I want to do kind of probably a 1/2 inch. I guess I could do an inch thickness folded. But I think I really kind of want to do more of a 1/2 inch, but it's going to end up, this is so thick, I'm going to have to account for the fold too. Okay, so let me look on the inside. Okay, get stuff lined up here in the middle. And then let's see which book. Usually, if you've been following me, you see I usually use a Teflon folder. I do have a bone folder that I've used for many years. I find that the ones made out of bone, um, I like them a little bit better for scoring. For general like flattening down, I like the Teflon folder better, but for scoring stuff, I really like it better for with the bone folder. All right, so I think I am going to just eyeball this. That's the other nice thing about doing something from a box, like doesn't really there's no plan, right? So you can just kind of make it up as you go. Okay. I just want to kind of make sure everything's still in line and basically about the same spacing. I'm trying to be careful not to push the bone folder through the top layer of the like the top layer of the image of the cardboard. Okay, so that worked out pretty well. It's got a little bit of space for pages in there. It's got our little scoop taken out. And then you can see the silly rabbit tricks are for kids on there. And the two covers are the same length. So I did all my measuring correctly. I'm going to set this one aside. I'm not going to work on the pages for that yet. I'm going to work on another set of covers. I like to have everything cut down before I move on to the next part. That way I can kind of get the remnants out of the way and all of that. Okay. Charlotte, thank you for your comment. Yeah, this is a really cool design. It's amazing how much detail they are putting into shoe boxes and just packaging in general. So it's hard when, you know, this literally all my son did was take his shoes out of this and didn't even look at it again, probably. Or maybe he looked at it, but didn't use it for anything. And so it's hard to just be like, well, somebody spent all this time making this design, thinking about the whole way that the packaging is going to fit together, how, you know, even like the design of the Trix rabbit on the bottom of the box, like somebody's job was to do that and to think through all of that. And it seems like a waste just to put it in the recycling bin. So it'll be nice to be able to turn these into something else. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do next is maybe pick, I want to pick a piece to make just some plain flat covers that I could use for Coptic binding. And I'm just looking at the two kind of main panels. Let's see if I can show you everything on here. I really like the purple swirl, and this one, even though it's the easiest one to cut, doesn't really have much purple. So there's another piece over here. The only problem with that is that it's got the scoop out, but I could cut here and have one cover be this, and then cut here and have the other cover be that, and just cut around this. What's on the other side? That's just the Crocs logo. Okay, so why don't I start with that? Because I'm going to be cutting some of this away, I'm going to use my straight edge to cut this free instead of scissors, because I want to maximize the amount of give myself the most area to work with. I may still trim it down more, but I want to make sure that I have as much material to work with as possible. Okay. So again, we're going to just cut this piece off here. Okay, so then let's take a look at how much this is. right, so that's about just about 6 1/4 on this side to this first part of the scoop. And then from this other side edge in to the scoop, it's about 6 1/8. So I'm going to say my covers will be at least 6, well, potentially up to 6. And then this is the 5 and this is 5 5/8. So I could cut this one to 5 1/2 again. And let me think. I would probably, if I'm going to use a regular piece of paper, let me get out a piece of paper to show you. So sometimes I think this through too so like I mentioned before, if I'm doing an 8 1/2 by 11 piece of paper for this, then I can just cut it in half for 5 1/2 inches tall. But what I want to think about is, do I want to just make it so that even though I have up to 6 inches for each cover width, do I want to make it just this size, which is about 4 1/4, I think. Yes, 4 1/4. So if I made it 4 1/4, then I could just make one cut per page to get 2 pages out of it, or to get 2 sheets out of it. And then it's just a simple fold in half. And it makes it a lot easier. With projects like this, where it's fun to make it, but it's not a fancy project, I guess you could say. Sometimes it's doing things like this, making it so that it is the right size, so you only have to make one cut and then can fold, to save some time and makes the project more fun, because you're doing a measurement that works for you and makes it easy, as opposed to really like overworking something, I guess you could say. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to leave this the height it is. That will give it actually a little bit of extra. Let's see if you can see that. I'm going to light a little closer. See how it has like a little bit of extra height on the top of the pages and the bottom of the pages. So I will then just make this probably 4 3/8 is probably going to be how wide I'm going to cut these covers. So let's see. Yeah, 4 3/8, which is great, because I was noticing there's a little bit of a wrinkle right here in this box. And I was worried that if I had a big cover, that might show or make it bend over time. So we are going to go with 4 3/8. I'm going to get out my little mat again. All right, and before I cut, I'm going to take my pages and just put them over top and make sure that that looks right. Okay. All right, so we've got one cover, and then I'm going to flip this around. I don't think this edge is straight, so I'm going to trim a little teeny bit off of this, and then I'm going to cut that down to 4 3/8. Okay, so then we've got our covers. It becomes a question of, what do we want to be the front and what do we want to be the back? Luckily, nothing is really showing on the inside. There's no wording. So we could even flip stuff upside down if we wanted. I think this is going to be my front. This is going to be my back, like that. So I'm going to set those aside. I'm not going to make the pages for those yet. I'm just going to set those aside. And then there's one more book I want to make out of the big part of the lid. So this last section, the biggest section, I do love this picture, but I'm concerned with it being the main cover. So I'm debating, do I want to make another one that's like this style where it's folded in the center and then the pages will be, I don't think I said this before. For this one, I'm going to sew pages along the spine. So I'm thinking I would do that same thing for this. I'm wondering if it would be better to use this as the outside. And that way, when you're sewing the pages in, you can see the thread color and it kind of makes sense. And then as a surprise on the inside, this would be the inside picture. That way the stitches aren't going through the rabbit's face on the spine. Let me know what you think. I'm going to cut this part down now, but in the comments, let me know if you think I should do the marbled as the cover or the rabbit as the cover. So again, while y'all are voting on that one, I will just cut this down. I'm going to just trim it based on the fold lines to get it separated out first. Okay, so let's see. All right, so this is another situation where just thinking about the height of this, it's almost 9 inches, but that's including some of this fold here. So I think I'm going to cut it back to 8 and I think I'll do 8 3/4. That way it has some spacing at the top. And then again, I can use an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and use that as my pages and just fold that in half. And that'll be the whole height of the book. Okay. I need my bigger ruler. This is going to make a weird noise. Hold on. Sorry, my metal ruler was underneath my laptop, and sorry if that was like nails on a chalkboard. Okay. All right, so now we've got it cut down. Look and see the edges. These edges look pretty straight, but I should figure out how long this is. This is just about 14 inches. So I'm going to trim each edge real quickly just so that it is exactly 14 inches. All right, so I'm going to work on this side because this is the one I'm going to put this on the inside. I think it's just, this is much more interesting as a design, and then it's kind of fun to open this up and see that it's actually a packaging box. So let's line this all up. The center is going to be 7 inches. So I need to find that line, and then I'm going to probably make this, let's see. I have to think about how wide I want the spine and how many pages I want in there, as well as how big the covers are going to be. Because I don't want to make it so big and then the pages are, if I'm using an 8.5 by 11, let me just get a mock-up, hold on. Okay, so again, I'm going to take this one and just fold it in half so I can see, because if I don't want a super chunky spine, I mean, I want a fairly thick spine, but if I don't want a really like a 4-inch wide spine, I just need to make sure that I can figure all of this out and don't have too much space there, because otherwise I'll just trim off the edges a little bit before I start folding stuff. Okay, so I just have another piece of paper. I'm gonna just fold that in half as well so that I can kind of just visually get a sense of how much space there is. Okay. Okay, so I think I want 2.25 inches of spacing on the spine. So now again, just finding that center line. And my mat has a 0 line and then it counts out to both sides numbers. So I'm just trying to get my box centered on that. And then from there, I'm going to want 1 inch and 1/8 on either side. So then I'm just going to score it and fold it again. Okay, and then 1 inch and 1/8 on this side. Okay, there we go. So it's going to be a really thick, it's almost like a notebook, like a binder or something. It looks like a 3-ring binder proportions. And then you open it up and you'll be able to see that inside. So I think that's, let's see. I think that's going to be good. If I bind the pages into this and it starts to look really terrible, like terrible in that I have too much space on the edge here, then I can always trim it down. But I really do like the proportions, especially how this is coming in here. So the next thing I'll say about this one is that I just need to figure out how many signatures of pages I want to put into the spine. So I'll just talk you through how I figure that out. I'm not going to fold all the pages on the live stream, but I can tell you how I go about figuring out how many pages I'm going to put in my signatures and then how many signatures I need. Let me just grab a couple more pieces of paper so I can fold them and show you like with thicknesses and stuff. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm just using regular copier paper. This is what I use in my printer just for everyday printing stuff in the studio. But I like it for, projects like this. So I'm going to count out 6 sheets of paper because that's typically, it really depends on the thickness of the paper of how many sheets I'm using, but I usually start with about 6. per signature. So I'm going to start with that, and I can always add more. I'm not going to need to take any away because this paper is so thin, but I might want to add some. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I have my signature of 6 pages, and then what I like to do is take the book and just kind of eyeball. I typically will make sure that the signatures are somewhere between an eighth and a quarter of an inch spaced evenly. But a lot of the work I do is on, boxes or things that already exist that weren't made to be a book, or books that I take the main text block out of and then sew new pages into. So I kind of have to be flexible on this. So just with keeping like 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch spacing in mind, then I'll kind of eyeball it and see how wide my spine is and how many signatures I want to do. Do I want to do an even number, or do I want to do an odd number? And then I can play around with how the signatures look, all the stitching looks on the outside. So there's a lot that goes into it. But first, you guys start by folding your pages and seeing how much you've got here. I think I can do 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I did that, it would be 4 and then 3. So I would do 7 signatures. So I'm actually going to just fold those pages real quickly. I do always put them into press overnight just to flatten things out. 1, 2. Right, how many is that? That's 4 signatures so far. So I can look at this spacing and knowing these are going to need to press some more because they are a little wide open. I can start and just get a sense of, let me see if I can show it to you this way. So all I'm doing is just kind of holding them in place, and you can kind of see, let me get my head out of the way. You can kind of see how they naturally want to be a little bit separated from each other. And that is about that 1/4 inch spacing. So the 4th signature should be lined up kind of in the middle, and then I'll do 3 signatures on either side of it. So I think that's going to work out really well. And then to attach these, I'm just going to do a pamphlet stitch. So I'll probably do a 5-hole pamphlet stitch for these. Yeah, I think I'm going to end the live stream here. I will go ahead and fold the rest of my pages. I will tell you, for this little one that we did the covers for, this is going to be a Coptic bound book. So I'll go ahead and fold the pages for that and get everything in the press and figure out my pages for this. Although that might be a whole other live stream because I've never done something where it has a cutout, and it's probably not going to be that big of a deal, but I have to figure that one out too. So, because of course I want the full height of the page to be the whole height of the top. Although I guess I could cut that off and make that a lot easier. These are the questions I will think about and ponder. I will get all my pages folded and in the press. And then probably next week, I will come back and show you some of the sewing up of all of the books. So I hope that you enjoyed seeing how the shoebox went from a shoebox to these pieces that are going to become a book. And just stay tuned either here on YouTube or over on my Instagram. And I will definitely post ahead of time to let you know when I am going to be sewing these books up. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have an awesome day. Bye.